Tip number 1, keeping it simple. One of the biggest things I always tell students and clients as well, that before we even start beginning working with them, we need a feature list. I just want to know what are the 2-3 things that a user needs to do that's going to provide the value to the problem that we're solving. Tip number 2, one of my biggest learnings about building code with AI has been that it likes to change stuff a lot, or maybe use a different button style. It doesn't really keep that consistency that you really want when building out a full working application. So one of the things that we do a lot now is building style guides and design systems before we begin building the actual application. You see, by having a design system or a style guide, you can make sure that whenever you're building a new component, you can show the AI that that's the kind of style you want it to follow, and then it's going to create that new component with your specific design system. Tip number 3. So this probably has to be my favorite prompt that I've discovered over using Lovable over the last 3 years, and that's to ask it to apply Dieter Rams' design principles. He influenced the design of Apple and Johnny Ive, so if you look at any of the products he made, they're very similar to how the first couple of iPods looked. Dieter Rams focused on a couple of things, like making sure that you only use color when it's necessary, focusing on a minimal and simple UI. And at the end of the day, if you're overwhelming your users, they're not going to use it. So you want to provide that kind of experience where it's really easy for them to do the thing. Tip 4, re-rolling your prompts. I know that a lot of us sometimes when we're prompting can get really stuck with this process of, I have to keep prompting, I have to get me out of that rabbit hole, right? And we go down this complete kind of credit wasting spiral until we get to this point where we're like, okay, I'm going to give up. Try and get into this mindset of, if you're stuck, it doesn't have to be that way. You can go back to when it was working and then just try a different approach. So I'd just be experimental and see what you can figure out. Tip 5, understanding the basics. What are requests and what are responses? Because I think this terminology and understanding it will be really crucial when it comes to building your application. A request is where you send a message to a server and you ask it to return some information for you. Whenever you look at any documentation online, you'll tend to find that there's 2 core things to get across. What is the request that you need to make, in this example to OpenAI, and what is the response that you're going to be expecting back. Tip number 6, Supabase and tables. What is Supabase? It's basically this really cool UI and app that's built on top of this technology called Postgres. Postgres is SQL, it's a database, and it's used all around the world, and it's built for scale. Supabase took this idea and thought, how can we build some cool technology on top that allows people to store files, edit data, and allow users to log in. And it has so many options. You can go through and add all sorts of login options, security. It's a really well built out tool. Tip number 7, security. It's good to understand the basic security practices that Supabase offers. Lovable also has a really cool security reviewer, which you can use to help fix certain problems that you might have in the application. This is going to make a difference when you launch, because rather than worrying about have I leaked all of my users' data, you're just going to focus on have I built a good app. Tip number 8, compliance. Supabase is actually a really well built out tool, and it has a lot of compliance already baked into it. For example, it's SOC 1 and SOC 2 compliant, and if you want to be HIPAA compliant as well, you can sign a BA with them. Harry, why should I bother about compliance and security? It's really gonna make the difference between working with an enterprise company and working with a mum and dad shop. And if you can really get on top of compliance and security and make sure that the apps you build are always secure, you're gonna find it's much easier to work with these bigger clients and convince them that what you're doing is secure, it is good, and you'll be able to deploy a production ready app. Tip 9, with deployment, it's actually a really easy process. First off, you have the ability to just do it directly with Lovable, which I'd recommend 99 times out of 10 if you're just building something small and simple. When you go into Lovable, you can click the publish button in the top right and even buy a domain to be able to deploy it. So it should handle a lot of your use cases where you just want to get something out and try it on the market. Tip 10. So I really like this concept of remixing projects and using other people's work. First of all, you can see all of the prompts that they ran, so you can get a good idea of how to build applications inside Lovable. I also love it because it gives you a chance to play around and adapt someone else's UI. Tip 11, marketing your project. When I launched my startup Renamify last year, we didn't really have any idea about how we were going to market it, but one of the sites that we used that helped us get our first 7,000 users was Product Hunt. It was really simple. We just collected people's email up at the beginning, and then when we went to launch, we sent them an email and said, could you please upvote us on Product Hunt? Those initial votes were the key traction to help us get top 10 for the day. And as well as that, a bunch of users trying out the app as well. There's also other great websites like awards for web designers if you prefer making landing pages. But if you don't have a very big audience, I would try and utilize platforms like Product Hunt, communities like Reddit, and others to get the word out, as it's really hard to make a big splash when you only have have 10 or 20 followers. Tip 12, test your accounts. One of the things that I find a lot that's really easy to do is to set up a test account inside Supabase. Just think a little bit more ahead, and I like to try and just create one test account that I'm always going to use. It has a complex password, and I can share it with the client to log in, knowing that their data is still secure and nobody else is going to be able to log into the platform. Tip 13, something that I thought I should do in the past is when making user roles, I should add a column to the profile table and just say, are they admin, true or false? But that's not actually a very secure way to do it, and Supabase actually recommends that you use user role tables. This is a little table where you can define all the roles in your system, and then you can assign users to those roles as well. And you need to make sure here that you're following security best practices. If your rules aren't set up appropriately, somebody could make themselves admin, and then that would cause all kinds of chaos. Tip 14, one of the tips that we like doing in Imaginary Space is creating a special admin dashboard. This could be a completely separate app that's connected to the same Supabase, or it could just be a special page inside your app. We do this a lot for clients because sometimes people want to be able to manage members, add members, delete members, and change their user role as well. Tip 15, my favorite UI tools. One of the tools that I really love to use that's cropped up recently is 21st Dev, and I'm sure if you've experimented or used any of these AI coding tools, you've probably come across it as well. 21st Dev is this really cool directory where people can upload components for you to be able to copy into your AI coding projects. Once you've brought a component in from 21st Dev, you can also further edit it. So for example, if I pulled in a slider that was blue, I'd be able to make it smaller and green with just a few prompts and build upon the component that I copied. This is really cool, and I always make sure that whenever I'm setting up a project, I do the style guide first and then use sites like this to edit the different components in that style guide until I have a consistent theme that I'm really happy with. Tip 16. So when should you use Cursor? Everybody says that Lovable is able to do everything, and I believe that as well. 9 times out of 10, you won't actually need to leave it, and you'll be able to build everything that you want inside the tool. I like to use Cursor when I want to make a big change and I'm not too sure if Lovable is going to be able to handle it, but also for small changes to save credits as well. For example, I know how to write and read HTML and CSS, so it's very easy for me to go into the code and change the padding or the color or the font of something. And you can see how that saves so much credits because for a small change, why would you need to use Lovable to be able to make it? Tip 17. This kind of builds on my previous point, which is that sometimes Lovable will charge you credits for edits that you don't need to make. There's so many handy things to be able to save on credits, like edit mode or editing the code directly in Cursor. Especially when I'm trying to think in a technical perspective about how I'm trying to solve something, it's quite nice to jump into ChatGPT and just use voice mode or the text mode and chat with it about what you're trying to solve, so you can get a little bit of a plan before you go in. Tip 18. When you're in Lovable or any project, sometimes even Lovable might suggest to refactor a component. This basically means that there's like a faster way for this to be done, or your code can be split into smaller parts. Tip 19. It's like 10:30 at night, and if I don't get this last clip, then Dylan, my editor, is gonna kill me. So that actually says tip 14 as well. One of the biggest things that I try to help people take away when I'm building with them is this idea of finishing and executing. It's not really related to Lovable, but I think it is as well. It's this idea that like you could be endlessly prompting, but at the end of the day, the real challenge is to launch something, get it out there, and to get people to try it. You know, start thinking about how are you going to release it tomorrow, not how am I going to spend 6 months endlessly prompting and never releasing anything. Okay, well, I just filmed this whole video without even hitting the record button, so that's great. But at least I've written out all the tips, I guess. So let's do this again.